Welcome back. Let's start looking at events. This is the events index page. On this page, you'll see all of your events. To create new events, you can either click the Create button next to the event menu, or you can go up here to the three dots and click Create Event. When you create a new event, you want to give it a title. You want to assign an event type. We talked about this in the last video. So for example, if it's a wedding, you want to give it a wedding ceremony or wedding reception, depending on the type of event it is. To start off, for new events, you want to either do prospect or pending, or if you've already confirmed the event outside of Lumify, you can use the confirmed option. In this case, let's go with prospect. You want to give it an event date. Let's go ahead and say Christmas Eve. You can give it a time. You can give it both a start and end time, or just a start time. In this case, let's just go with a start time. All right. Now you want to give it an event location. By default, events are given a location, which allows you to organize your events. You can create new locations on the fly by typing in, for example, hitting enter. Do you want to give it an address? Okay. You can give it a subtitle, which is visible to your clients. It allows you to help describe the event for your clients, especially if you're doing multiple events for one client. Here you can give a package, so you can assign the gold or the wedding package that we created in the earlier video. In this case, let's go with the gold wedding package. You can define a number of guests that will be attending the event. And then finally, you can add add-ons. So any add-ons that the client has opted to choose, you can go ahead and check those off here. The next thing you want to do is add some contacts. So to do that, you can add a contact here under the Add button. Go ahead and give a sample contact of John Smith. Let's make them the client. And if you want to add a note, you can say something like father of the bride, just for your own internal purposes. That note is not shown to clients. You can hit save. And now what you'll notice is that after you've created that first client, your event has been saved. And because the event has been saved, you'll now see new options for contracts, invoices, and song requests. Now, before we move on to the other options there, let's go ahead and create another contact. In this case, let's add a lighting technician. So here we want to add a lighting technician. That's a person that you're going to assign to this event. It's a person that's also a staff. And we can add the lighting contact type for that contact. If you wanted to get fancier, you could add bartenders or officiants or photo booth operators. Let's make this example contact the master of ceremonies. All right. So we talked a little bit about contracts. If there were related contracts for this event, that would show up here. If you have related invoices, that'll show up here, and we'll create some of those in this video. You also see request playlists. By default, you get a playlist for song requests. You can add in more playlists in the portal, and I'll show you that in just a second. You can also manipulate the event timeline. So for example, for a 6 a.m. start, maybe you want to show up at the event at 5 a.m. So you do that, you put 5, there you go. And we can do another timeline item for family arrives. So we can make that 5:30. 5:30. There you go. You can drag and drop those. All right. And you can also add related events to the extent that you have any events that might be related to this. For example, if you choose to break down your wedding ceremony and your wedding reception, you can have a related event for the ceremony. That could be the reception event. And when you relate an event, that related event relates back to the previous event as well. So you have a two-way link there. All right, so once you have your event set up, you want to make sure you hit save. It's always good to save your changes. And then we'll jump into creating a contract. So when you have a pending event or a prospect, typically that means that you don't have a contract with that client yet. You're not committed to that event. So to create a contract, go to the contract section here and click new contract. Cool, that'll take you to the contract builder. And the first thing you want to do is set a recipient. So the recipient in this case is probably going to be the father of the bride. We can put John Smith. And that'll update on the left here, that live preview. All right. Moving down, you'll see that the event name has been pre-populated. And over on the left over here, you'll see that the event has been populated into the contract as well. You have the event name, you have the event date, the location, and the address for that event. What this has also done is pulled in the package that has been assigned and any add-ons. We must not have saved that add-on. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. Yeah, we must not have saved the photo booth add-on. I'll make sure that we get that and hit save. All right, let's go back to the contract. You'll see here that the photo booth add-on has now been reflected. So over here under billing details, you'll see a deposit percentage. And the deposit percentage is based on the defaults that you set in your business information. And that 25% is also reflected here on the second bullet point under payment. Client shall pay DJ a 25% non-refundable deposit in the amount of $581, and that information is automatically calculated based on the information you provide here on the right. In a future video, we'll show you how to update and change all of these templates. These are Word document templates that you can easily change on your computer at home. So before we move on, let's say in this case we want to give a 50% deposit. Right? And just by updating that number, you'll see that it's regenerating the document, which might take a second. But sure enough, that 50% deposit is reflected and it calculates the exact amount due. All right. So the next option down here is whether the deposit is due immediately. If you check deposit due immediately and you hit save, what you'll see is that the contract will reflect that the deposit is due on today's date, which is March 14th. If you change that and you put in an arbitrary date or arbitrary number, let's say 30 days before the event, the deposit itself will be due 30 days before the event. And you'll see that'll be automatically calculated there as well. In most cases, you'll probably want a long window to accept a deposit before you commit to an event. All right, the next option here is whether the balance is due before the event. By default, that'll be set to on, but you'll see that a 0 is listed there. So the balance is typically due on the day of the event, but if you want, you can add in, you can make it 7 days before the event, so a week before the event. You can even make it 14 days before the event. Depending on how you run your business, you might want to update that accordingly. So in this case, we made it 14, and that the remainder of the balance is 14 days before the event, which is December 10th. If you remember, the event is happening on the 24th, so 14 days before that is 10. Cool. It's on this page that you can also add a discount. So if your client is asking for a discount, or if you've factored in discounts into your pricing, you can go ahead and add in a $250 discount, for example, and that'll also reflect on the contract itself. So you'll see a new bullet point has been added up here. Client is provided with a $250 discount. And in a future video, we'll show you how to change your templates that you have available for contracts and for invoices. All right, so with that, we can go ahead and hit save, or send actually. So we're going to send this contract to John Smith. Let's go ahead and hit send. And so that updates the contract to show that it's in the sent status. And now if I am John Smith, I'll get an email that says your contract is ready for signature. Go to this link. And when they click that link, they'll be taken to the client portal. So if we click on that client portal, we'll actually see how that contract looks to the client. So you'll see contract number 2 needs action, and the action that it needs is a signature. So the client can review this contract, can contact you if they have any questions, and you can make changes. And while it's in the sent state, any changes will be reflected here on this page for the client. Once the client's happy with the contract, they can go ahead and hit sign. They can consent to e-signatures. Their information will be pre-populated based on information from the contact page. You should encourage your clients to make sure that this information is accurate, though. Right, and then your client will sign with their name. It's as easy as that. So now the contract has been updated to a signed state. The information for signature has been updated. So the executed date is March 14th, today's date. The signor was Will Smith with an address. And then the company name, your DJ company name, is also pre-signed based on the creation date of the contract. And that's it. So now that the contract has been signed, if we return back to the dashboard, click Return to Dashboard here. Let's go back to that event. You'll see that the event is now in a confirmed state. So it went from pending or prospect, and once the contract has been signed, it moves into a confirmed state. You'll also see that that contract is here. It's linked to the event, and you can easily click this to move to the signed contract and review that really easily. So once the contract is signed, the next step is we want to create an invoice. So let's go ahead and create an invoice. You can do that here with this blue button, which will pre-populate some of the information about that invoice. Or you can go back to the event page, navigate to that event, and you can scroll down and create an invoice by clicking this button here. Either way. Let's go ahead and create an invoice. You'll see that the event name has been pre-populated. Let's go ahead and invoice this to John Smith as well. And what you'll see is that his information will be populated into the invoice to section. As we move down here, you'll see that there's 3 different options for invoice source. You can invoice from a contract, which is that contract that we just had signed. You can invoice from the event itself, which will pull relevant information from the event and make decisions as to how you should be invoicing your clients. So in this case, it's pulling in the package and the add-on. It's using your default settings for the deposit amount. Or you can go fully custom and determine which invoice items are going to apply for a given invoice. You can with the custom option, you can decide deposit percentage, when it's due, and any discounts you'll be giving. In this case, let's go with the contract option. And let's select that first contract. And what you'll see here is that based on the contract, there was a due date, there was a deposit percent, and there was also a discount amount decided. And that's being pulled in from that contract that you agreed to with your client. All right. Now you can either send this as a PDF by clicking the Save button here, and you can mark the invoice as sent, or you can helpfully send the invoice directly through Lumify. To do that, you just hit this blue button here. So if you hit send there, you'll see that the status is updated to sent. And now, because the invoice has been sent, you can go into the client portal and see what that looks like to the client. When you do that, you'll see that invoice 1001 needs action, and the action required here is to pay. In order to get this pay option, you need to make sure that you have the Stripe integration set up. If you don't have Stripe set up, you will not see this pay option here. The client can then review the invoice. They can look at the packages that they've selected. They can look at the deposit amount and any discounts that might apply. While it's in this sent state, you can make changes to the invoice, and that'll reflect here. Once the invoice is paid, any changes will not reflect here. You can only cancel the invoice and make refunds. Once the client's satisfied with the invoice, they can hit pay. They can choose to pay the total amount, the remaining balance amount, or the deposit amount. Or they can choose a custom amount to pay if they want to give you a tip or something like that. In this case, let's go ahead and make the deposit amount. Let's click that. All right. Let's hit continue. By default, the logged in user will pre-populate in the payment method information, the same way that for contracts, the contact will show up. This is again pulling from the contact information from Lumify. And then they enter in their credit card number. Let's go ahead and use a dummy credit card. And your client can also save their payment details for future payments as well. Okay. To continue. So now it's telling you that you're all set to pay with your Visa card. All you have to do is hit pay. And once we do that, we'll take a second to process the credit card. We'll see that this invoice has been moved to the paid state. It might take a second for it to recognize the credit card. There you go. So you've received a partial payment. The status is updated to partial, and that payment has now been reflected as payment on March 14th of that amount. All right. So that's the basics of events. You've created a contract, you've created an invoice, you've gotten paid, you have a signed contract, and that's pretty much it. You should encourage your clients to use that client portal. It's really handy. It gives them a lot of really great information about their event. They can update the timeline and check out your other packages that you might have. And obviously, like we showed in this video, they can make payments and sign their contracts. In the next videos, we'll look at how to create templates for your invoices and contracts. We'll see you then.